Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I'm honestly so thrilled to be your guide today. I absolutely love jumping headfirst into those rich, immersive worlds that just completely take over your imagination. And today, well, we've got something truly special on our hands. We're going to explore the dark, gothic fantasy universe of Aderica King Paul's series, The Blue Angels. Specifically, we'll be unpacking the foundational lore from Book 1, Dark Fates, and taking a peek at the shadows gathering in Book 2, The Harbinger's Gambit. And hey, if you're a new reader, don't sweat it. We are sticking strictly to the prologue, the deep lore, and the world building today. No major spoilers here, I promise. We're just setting the stage so you can really appreciate the massive scale of the universe Paul has built.
So let's just get right into it. The series throws a curveball at you right out of the gate. I mean, when you hear a name like the Blue Angels, your brain probably jumps straight to, glowing winged celestial beings in perfect white robes fighting some clean cosmic war, right? But that is actually not what this series is about at all. This story belongs to humanity. The narrative really zeroes in on our fragile, fearful, and, let's face it, corruptible nature. It's a tale about ordinary people who just get caught up in extraordinary darkness. We're talking about grief, hidden evil, and the heavy, heavy cost of truths that have been buried under generations of silence.
Now, to really grasp what's going on, you have to understand the setting. Welcome to Angerii, or as the locals call it, Blackalley. I really want you to just picture this in your mind's eye. Try to feel the heavy, rusted scrape of steel. Breathe in that crisp, impossibly thick morning mist, and feel the suffocating weight of ancient, abandoned places. The world building here is just dripping with atmosphere. It feels a lot like our own 18th and 19th centuries. It's this colonial era full of sprawling cities, early technological booms, and massive trade networks. But the whole thing is draped in this thick layer of gothic, supernatural dread.
What makes Angerii so incredibly compelling is this wild juxtaposition of eras. You're watching a world drag itself from an ancient time, a time dominated by mythic, shadowy cults like the dreaded Bar Uda Angerii, who worship these terrifying old gods, straight into an era of rapid modernization. We're talking literal steam-powered vehicles thundering down cobblestone roads and electric lanterns finally lighting up the wealthy districts in cities like Tashar. But here's the catch. Underneath all that modern humming electricity, the ancient magic, and the old forgotten horrors, they never actually went away. They just kind of went quiet for a little while.
And this brilliantly illustrates the massive cosmic conflict operating entirely in the background of this world. On one side, we have Jumala, the eternal dominion of light. But Jumala isn't just about raw, blinding power. Jumala is actually defined by free will, patient restraint, and love. Jumala will never force humanity to be good. Then, on the flip side, you have Vilim. Vilim is the ancient demon god and the dark servant of Torber. And Vilim, he is driven purely by malice, manipulation, and just flawless deception. Where Jumala patiently waits for a soul to freely choose goodness, Vilim is actively manipulating the board, just waiting for that freedom to crack so he can swoop in and exploit it.
So operating under these two massive forces is this incredibly deep mythology of beings. Let's break it down real quick. First up are the Hirachis, basically the divine messengers carrying out Jumala's will. Then you've got the ethereals, like the rare, genderless Azandari, who act as these grand guardians of cosmic balance way outside the mortal realm. On the dark side, you've got the Chimeries and Azaliths, these shadowy, absolute nightmare servants of Torber hunting for Vilim. But right smack in the middle, acting as this completely unique, brand new vanguard are the Bardos, the Blue Angels themselves. And here's the kicker. They aren't pristine spirits. They are actually resurrected mortals pulled back from death to fight the darkness.
Which brings us to the rising sense of absolute dread that builds across these books. While Book 1, Dark Fates, really grounds us and introduces the world, Book 2, The Harbinger's Gambit, dials the looming stakes up to an 11. The narrative makes it chillingly clear that beneath the bustling, steam-powered streets of Angerii, older powers are finally waking up. That age of silence we talked about? Yeah, it's ending. Vilim's forces are stirring in the shadows, frantically searching for ancient relics that literally have the power to tear the fabric of reality apart.
And this actually taps into one of the most profound theological concepts in the entire series. You might be wondering, why on earth does Jumala use resurrected humans, the Bardos, to fight this massive war? Why not just send down an invincible army of celestial Heres and call it a day? Well, it all comes down to the sheer weight of human choice, human free will, our sacrifice, our compassion. It holds a spiritual authority that raw, untested celestial power just doesn't have. Think about it. A mortal who has felt real pain, who has known deep temptation, and still actively chooses to sacrifice themselves for someone else, that is the ultimate, undeniable counter-argument to Wilhelm's malice.
So let's zoom in for a second. Let's shift from that massive, macrocosmic scale all the way down to the micro level, the mortal anchor of our whole story. Basically, everything revolves around the Angerii bloodline. Specifically, it centers on two young siblings, Chris and Adar Angerii. They are just ordinary kids living in the city of Char who find themselves completely and unknowingly tangled up in this ancient war. They're actually the descendants of a family that has been quietly holding back the shadows for generations, totally behind the scenes.
To really understand Chris and Adar, though, we have to talk about the incredibly tragic backstory of their father, Lauren Angerii. Lauren's life was defined by this terrifying, crushing burden. First, he stumbled upon the fact that the Barud Angerii, that dark cult-worshipping Willem, were still around. Second, he realized they had left behind a seriously powerful, cursed artifact known as the Amulet of Surkar Rupine. And third, acting on this mix of partial divine guidance and just immense personal conviction, Lauren quietly gave up his wealth, lost his sanity, and ultimately sacrificed his own life just to secure that artifact and shield his kids from the waking darkness.
But here's where the lore gets super dark, and honestly, fascinating. In this universe, magic operates on a pretty terrifying rule. Malice cannot be destroyed. It can only be displaced. So, when physical relics of dark power are shattered or locked away, their corruption doesn't just poof into thin air. No, it gets absorbed into nearby biological lineages. It literally fuses into DNA. Because of what their ancestors did, the dark magic of the amulet was actually absorbed right into the Macedrangia bloodline itself. Chris and Adar aren't just fighting some war on the outside, they are carrying an ancient curse in their very veins.
Which leads us straight into the incredible internal conflict raging inside Adar Angerii. Adar carries this super volatile dual nature. On one hand, she has the Harak el Jumala, which is this divine, awakening spark of light. But on the other hand, she is tethered to that corrupted, displaced malice from the amulet, and it reacts violently to the light. This duality creates such a cool mechanic in the lore. Adar actually struggles to read the ancient sacred texts that are supposed to guide her. The words are completely illegible, unless she is pushed into a state of intense emotional arousal. We're talking pure fury, mortal terror, or profound grief. Only in those extreme moments does the divine spark flare up enough to finally illuminate the text.
So the crucial point here is that Adar absolutely cannot survive this alone. Luckily, she gets help from a pretty incredible source, Jinx. Jinx is the youngest of the resurrected Bardos, and she actually chooses to stay behind in Blackalley to act as this intense, sometimes terrifyingly physical guardian angel for Adar. Jinx is there to help Adar master her rapidly growing, highly unstable abilities, all while fending off these creeping horrors that are constantly hunting the Angerii bloodline. And let me tell you, their dynamic is not just some simple, happy friendship. It is a desperate, centuries-weighted alliance against the absolute dark.
And trust me, they are going to need every single ounce of that alliance, because the unrelenting shadows are closing in fast. The title of Book 2, The Harbinger's Gambit, actually refers to Willem's ultimate servant. The Harbinger is not like those mindless, shadowy beasts we see earlier on. No, this thing is an uncatchable, perfectly calculating entity. It's a master deceiver. It literally uses profound human grief as a disguise, kind of hollowing out tragedy just to wear it as a mask. It weaves this flawless, terrifying trap right under our heroes' noses, setting the stage for a conflict where brute force just isn't going to cut it.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy, lingering question. When ancient darkness awakens in the modern world, will human innocence actually survive the night? Adika King Paul has crafted a universe where the stakes feel as deeply personal as they do cosmic. It's this masterful blend of gothic dread, incredibly rich mythology, and the fragile, beautiful power of human choice. I absolutely recommend diving into these books to discover the answers for yourself. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep exploring.